Hello, good evening everyone, and welcome to another video on comprehension review. Today we're going to be looking at some common mistakes that we make in our class comprehension exercises. Specifically, I'll be looking at 5 common mistakes that we're going to be committing on a regular basis. Through all of the reading with meaning exercises we've covered, these are by far the most common mistakes that all of us make. Alright, so without further ado, we're going to jump right into these 5 mistakes, and as we go along, if you have any questions or if you notice something which you're not clear about, don't hesitate to drop me a message through Edmodo, Class Dojo, or Flock to clarify any misunderstandings or misconceptions you might have. Alright, let's go. So, error number 1, incomplete sentences. Okay? Now, whenever we answer a question in comprehension, we must be aware that the answers must be in complete sentences. Let's take a look at some examples of mistakes that I come across very often when I mark your work. So let's take a look at the first question. Where did Qingyi find the banana? This is a where question. I'm looking at a location, a place, if you will. So my answer must contain a place. However, remember that that place must be written within a complete sentence. If the sentence is not complete, like this, in the abandoned car, then half of my marks get deducted because I'm not answering in a complete sentence. Are you able to answer this question in a complete sentence? That's right. Qingyi found the banana in the abandoned car. Notice that Qingyi, the subject of this question, must appear in the answer. The action of finding the banana should also be included, right? That makes the sentence complete. I have a subject, Qingyi, a verb, found, and an object, the banana, together with the location in which the banana was found in the abandoned car. Alright, now let's look at the second one. Why did Jancis shake her teddy bear? Right, this is a why question. Why did Jancis shake her teddy bear? A very, very good question, if I might say. So my answer should give a reason for Jancis shaking her teddy bear, so that she could get the money out. Again, notice that Jancis, the subject, is missing, and the action is also missing. The action of shaking her teddy bear is not in the answer. So if I were to insert both the subject and the verb, that should complete my sentence. So there we go. Jancis shook her teddy bear to get the money out. Jancis shook, subject, verb, her teddy bear, object, and reason to get the money out. That gives me the complete answer without any marks deducted. So, just to summarize, incomplete sentences are sentences that are missing the subject and the verb most of the time. And when we do not give a complete sentence, very often half of our marks get deducted because we are not following the first instruction of comprehension, which is to answer in complete sentences. And complete sentences will include a subject, a verb, an object, and very often part of the answer that is tacked onto that. Okay? So very, very important to answer your questions completely, in complete sentences. So take a look at these examples for a minute and review them. Can you see the mistakes that you're making in some of your answers? I'm sure this is quite familiar to many of you. Alright, so let's move on to the next common error that we make in comprehension. So, common error number 2, inconsistent tenses. Now, always remember, Mr. Pang mentions this again and again in class. The question is king. The question's tense will dictate the answer's tense. So if the question is in the past tense, what tense should the answer be in? That's right, it should also be in the past tense. And most questions in comprehension will be in the past tense because they're asking about something that's already happened. Alright? So you are simply giving them the answer in the same tense, which is in the past tense. So let's take a look at the first sample question that we have. Right? How did Martin juggle the durians? How did Martin juggle the durians? Notice the word did has been bolded and underlined, which means that it is the tense of the question. How did Martin juggle the durians? And the word did tells me it's in the past tense. So my answer by right should also be in the past tense. But take a look now at this error. Martin juggles the durians with his bare hands. Now the word juggles is in the present tense, the simple present tense. And it's agreeing with Martin in the subject-verb agreement rule, right? So Martin, one subject, puts S after the word juggle, the verb. However, it's in the wrong tense. So half of my marks get deducted because my answer is in the wrong tense, even though it is the correct answer. So notice, it is a careless mistake that cost me half of my marks, even though I've identified the answer correctly. It is really a waste of marks, okay? Let's take a look at the second question, all right? After we've read about Martin juggling the durians, what's going to happen next? Okay, Martin juggled the durians with his bare hands. This is the correct answer, sorry. So before we move on to the next question, look at the correct answer. Martin juggled. And this is then in the correct tense. Juggled is in the past tense, right? And that lines up with did, all right? Juggled and did are consistent in terms of tense. Next question. What did Ingrid wear to the fancy dress party? I want you to think in terms of the theme of fruits again, right? We're talking about durians now. What did Ingrid wear to the fancy dress party? Can you now spot which verb is carrying the tense in this question? That's right, it's the verb did, right? Like the previous question, what did Ingrid wear? And this word did tells us that the question is in the past tense, which means that the answer by right should also be in the past tense. But let's take a look at the error here. Okay, Ingrid wears a watermelon suit to the fancy dress party, right? So Ingrid wears or is dressed as a watermelon, right? And she goes to the fancy dress party. The word wears again is in the present tense, and that's wrong because the question is in the past tense. So what should the correct answer be? That's right. Ingrid wore a watermelon suit to the fancy dress party. Ingrid wore a watermelon suit to the fancy dress party. So we must be able to transform our verb into the correct tense. So what did Ingrid wear? Ingrid wore a watermelon suit to the fancy dress party. So Ingrid in a watermelon suit, Martin juggling durians with his hands. All right, we're getting a pretty peculiar picture now. Let's move on. So error number 2 is inconsistent tenses. We're going to move on to error number 3 now. But before that, remember what was error number 1? Let's move back just to revise. Incomplete sentences, right? So inconsistent tenses. So that's error number 2. Let's move on to error number 3 now, which is transference errors. Now, what this means is simply that we copy the words from the question or the passage incorrectly. And this is another careless mistake that we often make, right? We look at a word, we think we know how it's spelled or how it's written, and then we transfer it wrongly. And this is purely carelessness, right? The word is already printed there, we need to copy it correctly, but we don't. Let's take a look at some examples of common words that cause transference errors when we write them out in our answers. Let's take a look at the first sample question. Why was Derek interested in the smelly onions? Why was Derek interested in the smelly onions? And notice I bolded and underlined the word interested. The word interested here is a very commonly misspelled word because of the E and the R and the E and the S, right? So the way in which it's arranged is rather tricky when it comes to copying the word out. So be extra careful when you see words that have multiple repeated letters in them, like interested, all right? So let's take a look at the wrong spelling. Derek was interested, all right? So it's often the way we pronounce it, we spell it the way we pronounce it, interested, because he wanted to make a stink bomb. Derek was interested, right? The wrong spelling of the word interested deducts half of the marks. Wow, that's a lot of marks to lose for careless mistake, right? So Derek was interested, correctly spelled, I-N-T-E-R-E-S-T-E-D, all right? So let's take a look at the second question with a second commonly misspelled or wrongly transferred word, which is the word unusual, okay? So what was unusual about Damien's hair? What was unusual about Damien's hair? So in the passage, we would have read about that, and we are going to transfer the answer, but the word unusual is often misspelled as unusual, Okay, unsure. Rather silly sounding word. Damien's hair was unsurely messy. Unsurely messy. Right? So notice the omitted U, right? U is missing here. And without the U, this again costs me half of my marks. Right? We're adding up the marks we're losing now. Right? That's 1 mark out of a total of 2 marks I could have gotten here. So I'm not sure if we've been keeping track of the number of marks we've been losing due to very, very careless mistakes we're making, but these are very common mistakes that we often see in comprehension. So that's error number 3, transference errors. So again, a quick recap. Error number 1 had to do with us making mistakes with the, right, let's go back to visit it again, incomplete sentences. Error number 2 had us making mistakes with our inconsistent tenses. And now error number 3 has to do with us copying, transferring, writing commonly misspelled words wrongly. Okay, so these are the 3 common errors up to this point. We're going to move on now to common error number 4. Okay, incomplete answers to the questions. Now, this is a very common mistake, especially with questions at the end of our comprehension exercise, where marks start going up to 2 marks or 3 marks a question. So remember, every question has a mark, and that mark is written at the end of the question for your reference, so that you know how many points to include in your answer. So if I have 1 mark, I wouldn't expect you to give me 2 or 3 points in your answer. Likewise, if I have 2 marks, I would expect about 2 points. So the marks are a good guideline as to how much you should write in your answer. Always pay attention to the number of marks that each question has. So let's take a look at the first sample question. How did Nikki defeat the Kung Fu master? How many marks does this question carry? 2, that's right. Which means I'm looking essentially for 2 pieces of information about how Nikki defeated the Kung Fu master. Right, let's take a look at the error that is made here. Okay, so she tripped him with a banana peel. So tripping the Kung Fu master with the banana peel is worth 1 mark. But where is the other mark? So notice here, I've noted minus 1 mark, okay? Which means that there's something missing in my answer. 2-mark answer with only 1 point is surely missing something. So let's take a look at the complete answer. In this case, we find 2 actions contained in the correct full 2-mark answer. She tripped him with a banana peel, 1 mark, and trapped him in a web of rubber bands, another mark. Okay, so 2 marks here. First mark awarded for tripping the Kung Fu master with a banana peel, and a 2nd mark awarded for trapping him in a web of rubber bands. Okay, notice how both points are linked with the connector and, which we've learned in synthesis. Alright, so notice how different parts of English feed into each other. When I want to link 2 points together, I often use connectors like and, but, or to show the relationship that these 2 points have with each other. So 2 marks, 2 points, I take both. Otherwise, I lose 1 mark. Again, 1 mark lost here because I did not give the complete answer in the first case. Now let's take a look at the second question. Why did Jermaine jump on her chair? Right now, how many marks is this question worth? That's right, 1 mark. So how many points am I looking for? That's right, 1 point. But you'll notice here that the point must be complete to score the 1 mark, right? If the point is not complete, something is missing from that point, then even though I give that point, it's not complete. I will not get the mark. So let's take a look at the error, the error answer, okay? So she saw a mouse. But if you read the passage, you'll find that that's not the only thing she saw, right? So this mouse, what was it like? What made it so scary that it caused Jermaine to jump on her chair, right? So something's missing. And let's take a look at the model answer that scores the full 1 mark, right? She saw a mouse the size of a cat. Wow, that's a really big mouse, okay? A mouse the size of a cat. Probably scare cats away too, right? So the mouse was the size of a cat. If I had left out the size of the mouse, I would not have scored that 1 mark. Okay, so here we go. We would have lost the entire mark here because we did not give the complete point. So read the passage carefully, answer the question carefully, making sure that you do not leave out important details in your answer, right? So again, this comes back to being very careful in your reading and in your answering of the question. Okay, so this is common error number 4, which is incomplete answers. Okay, so error number 1, incomplete sentences. Error number 2, inconsistent tenses, right? Error number 3, which Mr. Pang has forgotten, transference errors, right? Very important to remember that. Error number 4, incomplete answers, okay? And now let's move on to the last common error, right? Which is error number 5, incomplete answers. Incomplete answers. I'm sorry, no, this is still error number 4. This is the next example, right? So, oh yes, this is the third example for error number 4. I almost forgot. There is another type of question that commonly appears in comprehension where you are required to give a yes or no answer before you give a reason for that yes or no answer, right? So this is very important. If you do not answer yes or no, then the entire question can be marked with a 0. Okay, so be very careful here. Do you think Megan was angry? There's a yes or no question, right? After you read the passage, yeah, I think Megan was angry. So there should always be a yes or a no before you answer the why. Okay, so this is very important. Remember, no marks will be awarded even for the correct reason if you do not answer the yes or the no, because I need to know first whether you think Megan is angry. Alright, so let's look at the error message, the error answer. Her face turned purple and she crushed the grape in her hand. Right, so this is the correct reason that supports the fact that Megan was angry, but notice the missing yes or no. Again, all of this is worth 0 marks. That's how serious it is. In order to score the 2 marks for this question, I first need to answer yes. Yes, Megan was angry. Why? Her face turned purple and she crushed the grape in her hand. So this is very serious. We must always answer a yes-no question before we go on to answer the why or the how question that follows it. Okay, so be very alert here. Incomplete answers are by far the most common place where students lose marks. Students like you, like me, we can often make such careless mistakes when we answer comprehension questions, right? So pay attention to the number of marks, pay attention to the type of question, make sure you don't leave out the details, be very accurate in your answer, and you will avoid these mistakes, okay? And finally, common error number 5, okay? Let's move on to common error number 5, irrelevant information. All right, so when you answer the question, always answer the question. Don't give me information that is not related to the question I'm asking. So let me give you some examples here, and you will see this very clearly. Where did Chun Hong find that gigantic potato? Right, so this is a where question. I'm looking for a location, and I'm looking for Chun Hong's finding of that gigantic potato. Where did he find it? Okay, so let's take a look at the wrong answer, right? Chun Hong brushed his teeth, washed his face, and went into the kitchen where he found a gigantic potato. Notice here that there is a lot of information given in the answer. Chun Hong brushing his teeth, Chun Hong washing his face, and then Chun Hong going to the kitchen, and then Chun Hong finding the gigantic potato. All of the first few parts of the answer are irrelevant. I didn't ask what Chun Hong was doing in the morning. I didn't ask what he was doing before he found the gigantic potato. So all of this information is not relevant to my answer, and I'm essentially asking the teacher to pick the answer from that whole chunk that I've just written, which the teacher will not do. Therefore, I will get 0 for this answer because the teacher will not pick the correct answer out of that whole line of text I've just written. I must be very focused. Remember, do not be irrelevant. Okay, so what is the answer going to be? Simply, he, Chun Hong, found the gigantic potato in the kitchen, which is the where. Do you all get it? So be very focused. Don't be writing out entire chunks of text hoping that the teacher will pick the correct answer out of that chunk. He will not. Always answer accurately and specifically to the question. Let's take a look at another example, just so that we can get this down. What is Jacin's favorite character in the story? That's assuming I'm reading a story about Jacin, right? And Jacin has this favorite character. What is Jacin's favorite character? So I'm looking for a favorite character. What, right? A person in this case, all right? So let's take a look at the wrong way to answer this question first. Okay, Slappy Hooper was a funny character who spoke in an American accent and liked to burp out loud when he danced. Okay, so buried in this, of course, is the answer that Slappy Hooper is Jacin's favorite character, right? But notice that I don't link Slappy Hooper to Jacin or the fact that he is her favorite character. I don't say that anywhere in my answer. I just give this whole chunk of information that was not asked for. I didn't ask what Slappy Hooper was like, or I didn't ask what Slappy Hooper liked to do when he danced, right? So the question is, what is Jacin's favorite character? This answer does not answer the question. Therefore, you will get 0 for this answer as well. What should the correct answer be? Simply, Jacin's favorite character in the story is Slappy Hooper. Full stop, right? Keeping it simple, answering the question will keep you from making mistakes of including irrelevant and uncalled for information. So be very careful here with this 5th common error that we make. Okay, so there are 5 common errors we've made, right? So let's very quickly recap them. You can use your fingers to kind of help you remember. I know that's a little bit difficult to remember all 5 all the time. So do review this video, look through it a few more times, and try to remember to watch out for these mistakes when you're doing your comprehension exercises, okay? So the first one is answering in incomplete sentences, right? So when I answer a question, I should always answer in a complete sentence with a subject, a verb, an object, and the information the question is asking for. So answering in incomplete sentences is the first one. Second one, answering in inconsistent tenses, right? So the question is king, the question is in the past tense, my answer must be in the past tense. The third one is transference errors, right? There are mistakes that I make when I copy certain words out. I should be very careful when I'm copying words out into my answers so that I do not copy the words wrongly and get the marks deducted. The fourth one is incomplete answers, right? Fourth error is incomplete answers. If the question is asking for 2 marks, looking for 2 points, and I'm only answering to 1 point, or if the point I give is incomplete, then I won't be able to score the marks for the question. So incomplete answers are my point 4 common mistakes. And my point 5, my 5th common mistake is irrelevant information, like we've just mentioned, right? Giving me information, giving the examiner information he or she does not require or is not asking for is a common error, and you get marks deducted for that as well, okay? Now, let's go into a bonus round. I'm going to give you a bonus common mistake that you often make, okay? And this bonus mistake is right, okay? Very often, some of you, not all of you, most of you are okay, don't read the question carefully. When a question asks you for 1 word, which word, 1 word, your answer must be 1 word. It can't be 2 or 3 words, right? So in this case, which word in the passage has the same meaning as happy, right? So I'm looking for a word that can substitute for happy that is found in the passage. So take a look at the wrong answer. The word is over the moon. So let's say there's this phrase that actually means happy, right? In the passage, over the moon. But can this be the answer? No. Yes, it's the same meaning as happy, but it's 3 words. And a 3-word phrase can never be an answer for a question that's looking for 1 word. Only 1 word. So the word is ecstatic. Okay? The word is ecstatic. 1 word. So read very carefully. Questions are kings and queens. They tell you what they want, and you must give it to them, or no marks will be awarded. Alright? So be very careful. I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you watch the video again, you'll notice that every slide at the bottom has a count of how many marks are lost. And I'm going to add all these marks up all together now to show you how dramatic, how many marks can be lost if you're really careless and you don't pay attention to how you answer the questions, okay? And that's it, right? The price of carelessness is 10 marks lost out of a total of 14 marks, okay? That is a lot of marks to lose, and we can't afford to lose 10 marks out of 14 if we have a total of only 50 marks, right? So boys and girls, children, please be very careful. Review these 5 mistakes in your head again, right? Try to remember them and be alert to them when you're doing your comprehension, right? Answer incomplete sentences, right? Make sure that your tenses are consistent. Make sure that you transfer words accurately. Make sure that you check the marks and give complete answers. And make sure that you don't, what was the 5th one? Yeah, you don't add irrelevant information when you are in the middle of answering your questions, okay? So be very careful about these 5 common errors that you often make in your comprehension. Thank you for paying such close attention to this very short video. Please feel free to watch it again, slow it down, speed it up, try to get it into your head, these 5 common errors. And the 6th bonus one that some of you sometimes carelessly make, all right? And remember, have this burned into your mind that these are marks you should not lose. If you make an honest mistake, you really don't know the answer to the question, I'm fine with that. It's okay, right? It's okay to make honest mistakes, right? But if it's a careless mistake, then it's down to you. You have to be more careful. You have to check your work, all right? And given the amount of time that you have for the entire exam, you have more than enough to check, and check again, all right? So don't content yourself with 1 or 2 checkings. Do it 3 or 4 times to make sure that you're absolutely confident that when you walk out of that test or exam, you will know you wrote the correct answer as far as you were able to without making any careless mistakes. All right? Thank you once again for your very, very focused attention, and special thanks to all of these bonus characters who made a cameo appearance in all of my questions. All right? Thank you to Chingy, Jancis, Ingrid, Martin, Damien, Derek, Nikki, Jermaine, Megan's, both of you, I didn't specify which one, and Chun Hong as well. Special thanks to all of you, and thank you once again for watching my video, and I will see you all again very soon once our live streams are back online again. Have a great weekend, and remember to revise and rest, relax, exercise, and all things, have balance. Good night.